Hey, everybody, welcome back to another CirdecSongs interview. If you haven't already, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. Please like this interview because I know you're going to enjoy it, and leave some comments because I'm sure my guests and I would love to talk to you. If you know me, then you know how much I love an Australian band called We Lost the Sea. They are post-metal, I guess we'll call it right now, post-rock. I have been communicating with this gentleman for a couple of years now, have enjoyed every minute of it. He is one of the guitarists from the band. He is Mark Owen. He is from in his home somewhere near Sydney, Australia right now. So I have crossed the international date line to talk to this man, and I am beyond excited. Mark, how are you doing?
Yeah, great, man. Thanks so much for having me. It's great. It's a Friday afternoon, and it's beer time. So thanks for having me.
Very nice, very nice. It's still late night Thursday here, so I'm gonna have to wait until tomorrow for beer time. But you were a little bit closer to my timeline. You just got back from Europe. No, the band was over in Europe.
Yeah. We got back just under a month ago, I guess. Spent about 3 weeks there. Played 16 or 17 shows. So played our first ever UK shows, which were great. So yeah, it's been really cool, and so it's nice to be back in Australia. But I can't wait to get back to Europe again. So
Nice, very very nice. Now I'm excited about your band, and I'm dying to see your band live. But I live in the States, and what a lot of people like to do is complain when a band they like isn't going to come to their neck of the woods to play a show. I understand how unbelievably difficult it is in terms of expense to get from Australia to the States, but how about you explain in your words how challenging it is and why you can't get here right away?
yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, it's not. It's not that we don't want to come. We'd love to. We'd love to get across there. I guess the two main challenges are. Firstly, is that the States is huge. It's massive. And so,
Yes.
just so deciding where to play, what is of value to play, what's going to be financially viable to play, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, we don't just, to be clear, we don't do this band to make money, but without money, the band doesn't exist. So, in terms of a touring capacity, because we've all got like jobs, families, mortgages, all that kind of stuff. So we can't just dump heaps of cash into doing cool shit, even though we'd love to. But yeah, so like I guess planning a tour that is 2 weeks in the States that isn't financially crippling is difficult. Considering that like if you look at the bands in the States who are touring the States, they play for like 2 months or something, and they play 4 states and just like 30 shows in, and so we won't have the time or opportunity to do that. And the other reason really is that visas are expensive, very expensive. Flights are crazy expensive. So like our flights to Europe were about like 30,000 Australian dollars, which is like, I guess, depending on the dollar at any time, it could be like, I guess that could be like 20,000 US or something at the moment. And then on top of that, some excess luggage, plus it's hire, plus it's vans, plus it's, insurances. I said visas already. So to do the US without having some kind of crazy offer or like a really good couple of shows to really know that we're going to somehow not even break even, but not like lose every single cent we have and be in debt. It's very hard. So we do want to get there. We are planning hopefully to get there. There's talk about some things that we're kind of discussing with some other people, and yeah. So we're just waiting for the call up. Metallica. Where are they? Why aren't they calling us? Come
I'll
on,
see what I can
James.
do from my end real quick.
Yeah, that's right. All I need is Lars to call me and say, "Hey guys, come," and we'll come. So simple as that.
Nice. Well, I guarantee you'll see me in the front row. That's
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah.
given. But
Cool. Well, I mean,
it looks like you
Russian.
guys were doing.
Oh, sorry, I
Yeah.
talked over you. Russian
No, no,
Circles
sorry.
played. Russian Circles played with Metallica, so you know, here we
That's
are.
a good fit. That's a solid fit. So I would definitely be there. But it looks like you guys were doing well in Europe. I looked at some of the pictures you had on your social media. How's the reception been of late, as opposed to when you first started?
Yeah, I think it's just getting better. Like honestly, like I think that it was 5 years between when we first went there and kind of like peak departure songs arrived, and then we through the pandemic and all that kind of stuff. Like it ends up being 5 years later, and people were just still so like excited and happy that we were there, and like crazy supportive, and we had an amazing time, and the crowds were great, and I mean, we had a great response in terms of like I guess numbers and like merch sales and all that kind of stuff, which is like really cool from a pit point, not a pit point, like a numbers game, like being like, oh, we played to more people this time, we sold more merch, we all that kind of shit, which is nice. But the real great stuff was all the chats were cool, like meeting all the people after and having people come up to us and being like, I've been waiting 4 years to come see you, or I found out about you guys like 6 weeks after you were here last time, and I've been waiting. And that was like really, really special. We had like some crazy stuff. Like we had a woman, I should say, who like came home from work one day and like sat down on a computer and like jumped online and saw that we were playing in Bruges, and she lived in Austria, I think. Maybe I'm trying to do the maths in my head. Anyway, I think so, somewhere there, and she like literally just like grabbed a backpack and jumped on her push bike and rode for 3 days, like 600 kilometers, and she like rode to the show. Yeah, on a bike, and was like, I just rode 600 Ks, and in my head, right, because they're in Australia, like, the major cities are pretty far apart, so Sydney and Melbourne, like, it's like 1,000 kilometers, and so someone was like, you've got to come meet this woman, she just rode 600 kilometers on a bike, and I was like, okay, and I kind of was like 600 Ks on a bike, I was like, that's, not that heaps far or whatever. And then I like got there and I was chatting to her and I was like, hang on. Do you mean a push bike? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, whoa, that is out of this world. That is crazy. So, I mean, if you came 600 Ks to see us, I'd be very appreciative. But people were losing their mind. I was like, why is everyone losing their mind about this? And then I like put two and two together because it takes me a while. And I was like, wow, that is really cool. And I was like, she's like, yeah, I've got the same socks that I had on. I just like got on my bike and started riding. I was like, where'd you sleep? And she's like, oh, I've got like a tent on my bike and I just like sleep somewhere on the side of the road. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, and then she like just got on a bike and was riding home. So, I think like stories like that is like what really makes tour, we had people come from, I think we were in Prague, and we had people come from Lebanon to come see us. And we, like all this kind of crazy stuff where it was like, this is mental. Like, like I thought that just playing in a band and like going overseas and playing music overseas was cool enough. But then people were like, I've flown from, or we came from so far away and we did this to get here and whatever. We had a guy who, he lives in Belgium now, and he actually had messaged us when he was living in Iran, and he's from Iran, and he messaged us to be like, I don't have a credit card, I'm not allowed to have a credit card, like how can I buy your record? And we're like, don't worry about it, dude, just give us your address and we'll send you one. And so we sent him a copy, like a vinyl copy of Departure Songs, like 5 years ago or 6 years ago or something, and he came to the show in Belgium, one of the shows in Belgium, and he had like the mailer that we sent, and he reckons here's the mailer on the wall with the record like stored somewhere safe, but he's got the mailer on the wall with like, we had a little note on to it or something, and so he came to the show and got us to sign that, and we're just like, this is mental, like, and that's the stuff, like that's the moments that like make the tour, like hanging out with your friends and being on a bus and drinking heaps of wine and going to Paris and like being in London and all that kind of stuff is really, really cool and really fun and whatever. But it's those moments you get where you get to like, I guess, like share like a moment with someone who's really connected to your music on a different level, and that's the cool stuff. That's the stuff that you don't forget. That's the stuff that in like, 10, 20 years time, when I think about like the 2022 tour of Europe I did, I'll think of those times instead of the times that I drank 3 bottles of Bordeaux wine or whatever. Oh, I don't remember those times, but whatever.
Nice. And here's the thing, that both vindicates and validates me, because now I know I'm not the only one that
No.
has achieved that level of fandom. That's we're going to move heaven and earth to go see this band, because that's how much they mean to it. You bring up Departure Songs, which is this album right here, and I came across your band by accident. I am a post-rock fan, and I love a Chicago-based band called Tortoise. And I was in my early Bandcamp days, and I just said, okay, post-rock. Let's punch in post-rock and see what comes up. And your band popped up, and I heard a song. It's the second track on this album called Bogatiri. It's 11 and a half minutes. It's unbelievably emotional. I can't think of anybody I played this for that hasn't gotten at least emotional about it. I got flat out weepy about the whole thing. But this record is themed, shall we say, around loss, or the gallantry that comes with sacrifice.
Yep.
What was the driving factor behind this record?
So in 2013, we were a post-metal band, and we had a singer, Chris, and Chris took his own life in early 2013. And we were just coming to terms with how to, I guess, deal with that, cope with that. And I think there's a couple of things. I think we were just trying to work out how to tell stories still. So Chris was a really great storyteller. He was a great lyricist, and if you look at our earlier records, and if you actually read the lyrics, you'll see that he was a really talented storyteller. And so for us, telling stories was part of what we did. It was part of the, I guess, the not really an ethos, but like I guess like the backbone of what we wanted to do as a band. And so for us, we got to this point where we had no singer, and we tried we did actually try to get 1 or 2 other people involved to sing, and that didn't work out for a couple of different reasons. And then we're just like writing music, and not without really ever deciding that we weren't going to have a vocalist. And so we're just writing this bunch of music that we didn't really know what it was going to be or anything like that. And then we got to a point where we're just like, okay, I guess we're just like an instrumental band now. And so we weren't really trying to be a post-rock band or anything. We were just trying to write interesting songs that like felt good to play and that were cathartic. And I don't know, we didn't feel any kind of pressure to be a certain way, because in my head, I remember having a conversation with the dudes band, like, which Gronk would say, oh, you guys can't write like this, or you can't do this, or whatever, and so no one was going to tell us what to do. And so we just kind of went with that. And I remember that kind of, I guess the specific concept kind of came around when one night, it was late at night or something, and I was on my phone doom scrolling like I always do. We talked about that a bit earlier, actually. And I was watching footage of the Challenger disaster. And there was a YouTube clip that I think we pinched a whole bunch of audio from, but don't tell YouTube. So it's the launch, it's going off. And I think it's one of the TV, whatever the word is, like they're playing it on the TV, like it was happening live.
Yeah,
and
it was all over the news.
Yeah, and the Challenger like blows up, explodes, and then the camera just pans, and it pans to like a set of the parents of one of the astronauts, and I was just like, whoa. And I just like remember feeling like, this is crazy. Like, that is mental. Like the fact that just like, and there's just like this mum and dad who are just like, oh, okay. Like, just like looking up, and I'm just like, that is horrifically horrifying. And I remember we were like talking about it. And so like I showed and we're talking, and I had like started telling the band about it. I was like, I watched this YouTube clip the other day, rah, rah. I was like, so mental. I was like, and we started just like, going down this hole of talking about like how people like, those people were like being, I guess, like doing something that we'd never get to do. Like I'm never going to space, right? So, and like, but they're not doing it just for like themselves. Like, of course you get to do it. It's cool. I'm going around and shit, but it's like, furthering humanity, like it's furthering mankind. And it's like goes beyond that. It's like I think, is it Carl Sagan talks about the pale blue dot, like that kind of thing. And it's just like, and so we started talking about that. And then at the time we had just like kind of written the first part of Challenger. And I just like went ding ding, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I was like, I was like, "This sounds like this fucking story." And we're like, "Wow!" Then we just were like, "Holy shit, that works!" And then we're just like, "Well, what do we do? What story are we telling?" We just lost our mate, and we want to tell a story about him. I guess we want to like, the stuff we're writing is I guess like is a way with the way. Dealing with our grief and working out how to do it, and even like deciding whether or not the band would break up or continue, all that kind of stuff was like interesting conversations around all that kind of thing. And and so it just kind of all came from that. And then we just started like, it's weird when you like start actively searching for, it's a weird thing to like start finding stories about like people who like died in some kind of like, I think I guess gallant way or whatever. And that's a weird search engine. That's some red flags for most people, but yeah. And so we just, as we looked into more stuff, and we found like a whole bunch of stories, and the ones that we decided on were the ones that kind of like either we were so like the last dive with David Shaw, we kind of, that was one of the ones that was kind of, we knew the story, and then as we were writing, we're like, oh, then we can like kind of try and write something like this, and that was kind of guided by the story. And then something like Bogatiri was actually the last story we found, and we found heaps, and we're just like, that doesn't fit. None of that fits. Like I can't see the story in my head. I can't, like, that doesn't feel right. It doesn't connect. And then Matt Harvey, dude who does all the illustrations, is actually one of our guitarists. He found it and emailed to me, and I was like, bingo. He's like, yeah, that's the one. And we're like, yes, that is the one. And it's interesting though, because and please stop me because I just keep talking. But
no, carry on.
It's interesting though, because if you actually sit down, all of us, and get us to tell, to walk you through the music and the story at the same time, we will all tell you a different thing.
Oh yeah.
So which is cool, because that's what we expect other people to do. Then that's how we expect listeners or fans or whatever to experience as well. Like, we're not trying to dictate stuff, I guess, but we're just saying that, and we're not even trying to dictate it to be like, you can't think of anything else when you're listening to this. But we're just saying, here's a guide, and have a look, and if you like it, and if it clicks for you, it does, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And but yeah, and obviously it clicks for a couple of people.
Well,
and
the music is the music is so personal, because you talk about seeing Challenger on YouTube. I saw it pretty much live, January 28th, 1986. I'm a NASA nerd, so I was actually working in my college newspaper office, and somebody peeked their head in, and this is before the internet, obviously, and before everybody had a TV everywhere, and somebody leaned their head in our office and said that the shuttle had exploded.
Yeah, right.
And
Crazy.
I couldn't believe it. I raced home, and my mom just happened to be home sick that day. She was a teacher, and she had the flu, and she was at home, and she said, I come storming up the stairs, and she hears me. She says, yes, it's true. And I start looking at the newscast, and 73 seconds in, there's this explosion. The pictures were of Krista McAuliffe, the teacher's parents. I remember that. I don't know if that's her audio that you guys got, but we were just stunned. And
that
I
is right.
distinctly remember that's the first time I got away with swearing in front of my mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, it
your
just
mom
hit
probably
me.
said, yes, correct.
It hit me like, Yeah. Yes. I remember that like it was yesterday. Everybody, I'm too young to, to relate to when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. So Challenger was my JFK moment,
Yeah,
up
right.
until
Yeah.
9/11. So I
Well,
can
that's right.
certainly relate to. I know
So,
yeah,
so
I know exactly what that day was like.
the
So,
Challenger
and
disaster happened before I was born. So I was born in '86, but a
yeah,
bit later. But yeah,
yeah,
same, very similar situation to the 9/11 thing. Because I was my dad got home from work. He was working night shift, and he came in and he woke me up and he was like, a plane just like crashed into crashed. There's been an
yeah,
accident and the plane's crashed into the twin tower, like one of the twin towers, and I was like, whoa! And I think I would have been in year 9, I think, maybe year 9 or 10 here. I don't know what that equates to over there. And yeah, and so I got up, me and my dad were like watching the news, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is pretty nuts. Like, it's like, whoa. And then I was watching live, and the second plane hit the tower, and I was just like, whoa. My
yeah,
dad just went, I'm going to bed. And I was like, whoa. And then I just like stayed up all night, and I was like, what? And then I just remember thinking everything's different. Everything is different now. Like, just like,
turned upside down because
yeah.
I was a policeman then. I'm a retired policeman, as you know, and it was my day off. And I was actually going to go out to a golf course. Tiger Woods was in town for
Yeah, right.
and we were going to go out and watch the practice rounds, and it was just a perfect day, perfect crystal clear day, and my phone started ringing. And this is back in the pager era, mind you. First my pager went off,
Yep, call
and
me.
then my cell phone started ringing, and then my home phone started ringing. I'm like, okay, something's wrong. And I grabbed the phone, and my friend's like, "Are you seeing this?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? We're being attacked!" Like, and I turn on the TV just in time to see the second plane hit the tower.
Yeah,
And it's just, and the only thing that can come out of your mouth is, "Holy shit! What is happening right now?" And it's just,
yeah,
and I've gone from having the day off to go watch golf to going to my closet and getting my uniform ready, and getting ready for the phone call that's going to come to tell me to come back to work.
yeah.
Fortunately, that call never came, but still, yeah, it was
No,
never
crazy.
the same. And for what it's worth, you talk about the last dive of David Shaw. I found the documentary around that topic
Yeah,
called
right.
"David's Not Coming Back," and all I could hear was your song in my head while I'm watching
Yeah,
this footage. And the song opens with the footage of them trying to stay in touch with him, and as he slowly. There's a story behind this, folks, where a
yeah,
diver does a deep cave dive to recover the body of another cave diver that died. What was it, 10 years before down there?
yeah.
And
And they couldn't get his
David
body
Shaw
back.
wound up dying. Yeah, yeah. David Shaw wound up dying in an effort to bring this other guy back, and it's just unbelievably tragic. But the music, in its own way, is catharsis. At least it is for me. I'm wondering how it feels for you guys. And you've played it repeatedly now in concert and what have you. Does it have the same impact, or how does it feel now when you play it?
It's actually really interesting because I had in Prague. I had this wonderful, lovely lady from Berlin ask me the same question, and it was on the tour, and it was like the one night on the tour, I was like, all right, I'm having a sober night. I've got to like chill out for a bit or whatever, and so I was able to like have a really amazing conversation with her, and the answer to your question is. Uh, yes, when we play the songs, they still feel, I guess, like raw, and it's still very emotive, and it's very draining. And so,
Yeah,
one of the things is that we played once we released the Departure songs, it was pretty much it's like just over an hour long, and so we played it pretty much in full constantly for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, and. The last time we played it in full was in Hong Kong, and we actually had a friend of the family of David Shaw come to the show, and his father had been a pilot with David, and they had like done Christmases together and all that kind of stuff, and we actually got an email like a couple of weeks after the show from David's wife, who we had extended an invitation to the show. She's still in Hong Kong, and we had said, this might be weird or whatever, but we wrote a song about your husband, and we'd be honored if you'd come or whatever. And she said that she was like, obviously had missed it, but was really appreciative and had said to let her know next time we were there, and so all this kind of shit. But anyway, I digress. I go on tangents, so I'll try and bring it back. But essentially, so we played in full for a long time, and I think because as a band, as a collective, we are really we're really like hyper aware of being like genuine and being like really honest and not presenting something that is disingenuous. And so we'd never like want to stand up on stage and play these songs that we know that people have like an emotional connection to, and then like pretend that we're like sad or whatever. And like sometimes you play them and they feel really good and fun and whatever. But a lot of the time when you play them, and if you really want to like, I guess, immerse yourself in the music as a performer, as a musician, then you kind of need to go to a place that, I guess that song exists in, if that makes sense. So like, Max Richter talks about he likes writing songs to think about things in, which I really thought was really cool. And so that he talks about he wrote this song, I can't remember which one of it is of his, this piece, and it's about the first Iraq invasion, or maybe it's the second one, but it doesn't matter. But he talks about how he wasn't sure what to think about it, and like what to think about the information he was giving, and so he wanted to like write something so that he could then exist in that space and think about that thing, which I thought was really cool. So for us, like we play these songs, and we play these songs that like are essentially about grief and are essentially about like our mate who died, and so for us to be honest with it and to play it and to feel it and to really like, I guess, do the song justice and be like I don't know, almost like a conduit of the music to other people, then we need to go somewhere that is I guess steeped in, I guess, like grief essentially. And I think that what works so well and what is so beautiful about it and what was really cool and really great way to connect is the grief is like so universal. So like Nick Cave says that, like if you love, you grieve, and that grief is like it's like the showing of like the depth of love, like, and good old Nick Cave, and so when we play these songs to people and people have real like visceral and sometimes really physical emotional responses to them live, I think the coolest thing is that we're having a shared experience, that I don't feel like that they're our songs and we're performing them and like here's a song presented to you and now like you have this thing. I feel like it's like, all right, well we just happen to be the people that this song fell into our lap, and like I don't know, I don't really believe in much like spirituality or anything like that or whatever, but I guess if there was some kind of spirituality of music or whatever, I'd kind of believe in that. And I think that sometimes that as musicians and as dudes in a band, we kind of like find the song, if that makes sense. And so we kind of found these bunch of tracks that really like resonate with people and people have a really like strong connection to. And then when we play them, what's happening is it's not that we're the performer and you're the audience. It's that there's the song and we're all like sharing that experience, and we get to do this really cool thing where we have this amazing shared experience of like of grief or loss or love or whatever it is, and so then when this lovely woman from Berlin who was in Prague came up and was like, every time you play it must be draining. It's like, well, it is draining because it's like honest or whatever, but it's also really cool because we get to share this with everyone. We get to share this moment with you, and you might come and bring your moment to us, and we get to be part of that for you, and part of whatever that is, whether it's good or bad, or whether it's a great moment for you and it's really cathartic, and you are having, and you feel really like great and put back together or whatever, or whether you're, having your heart broken all again. We get to share in that with you, and it's like a shared moment. It's not us versus you or whatever. It's an us thing, and that's like what music is.
it's a completely different plane from somebody just regurgitating your lyrics back to you. I mean, this is next level. You know, this is, like you said, this is, we're all sharing something, and I admire the way you're able to do it with the arrangement you have. You have 3 guitar players and a keyboardist and bass and drums, and I sit there and I still wonder this day, how do you not trip over one another, especially from the guitar section? You know, while you're trying to put together these arrangements. Is there a formula for you guys, or how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, it's tense sometimes. Yeah. I think the true kind of like honest answer to that is that I don't know.
That's fair. That's fair. It just kind of works out.
Yeah, it does, and I think you just kind of have to, you kind of have to fight for what you want. I think, like, it sounds dumb, but I think, like we're writing now at the moment, we're writing a bunch of stuff, or whatever, and it definitely feels like a different process to the Triumph and Disaster stuff, and but sometimes, there's definitely like a tension, and there's definitely like some people who aren't happy about certain things or songs or whatever, and if you really believe in like a bit or a section or whatever, or you really want something to like kind of shine or whatever, you just got to kind of go for it. I think I remember seeing a thing on Radiohead, and Ed O'Brien was talking about how like if you like no one comes up with your idea for you, no one like passes off an idea, and if you don't come up with one, and if it doesn't make it through the meat grinder, then you just don't play. And
Right, makes sense.
I think sometimes finding the space is very difficult, and we talk about it a lot. And we talk about like things being busy a lot or whatever, but I think you just kind of constantly kind of keep learning and communicating, and we're getting better at it. You know, we've been a band for like 15 years, and we still argue about the same shit we argued 10 years ago.
Something to be said for consistency, though.
Yeah, that's right. But I think you just got to keep trying to get better at it. And I think the main thing is getting better at communicating. And I think, you know, we're all like in our mid-30s or 40s, or some people in their early 40s, and we're still learning how to do that. So, I think hopefully as time goes on we get better at it, but we'll find out.
Makes sense. And you mentioned Triumph and Disaster, which is the follow-up to Departure Songs. And I don't want to ignore that record because it is equally fantastic, and if I may say so, equally bleak, which is it's based around the theme of a mother and son spending their last day on Earth, basically. What caught my attention was the mix of that record, and that's something else I mentioned before. Departure Songs is spacious to me. It gives you a little room to contemplate and what have you. But Triumph and Disaster, hey, I see you over there. How are you?
This is all about.
Well, yeah, this is what it's all about right here. But and we got to take care of the planet for that young man right there to be certain.
He's talking.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
What's your name?
Oliver.
Oh, very nice to meet you.
He's in
I'm
Chicago.
What?
He's in Chicago in the States.
What is that?
It's a city in America.
Oh.
Nice to meet you.
How
old are you?
Oh, how old are you? He's doing it. How old are you?
6.
You are 6. So you're a Bluey fan, aren't you?
He said, "Are you a Bluey fan?"
The blue fan.
You know Bluey? You know is it the dog? I don't know. He's got an older brother, so he doesn't. He's into violence.
We'll circle back around to that. The joy of having brothers.
Michi, no. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no worries.
Michi.
I left my credit card at work.
Okay.
This is the joy of a live interview, folks. We have family time.
I'm doing an interview, babe. I'm gonna it's live.
I still say hi.
She still says hi. Can you close the glass door?
Grab your water, sweet.
Somebody's going to say this is the best part. That's the beauty of it. What was I babbling about? Oh, I
Uh,
the mixes. Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
Departure Songs has a nice spacious mix to it, where you're giving
The
room to
back.
contemplate. I like to say the Triumph and Disaster mix. When I tell people about the difference, I hold my hand 2 inches in front of their nose, and say, the mix is that close because it's not. To me, it means there's more of a sense of urgency behind that particular record, behind Triumph and Disaster. Am I on the right path, or was it just a different approach for you?
I think yes and no, maybe. The main reason that we wanted to work with Greg was to intentionally not make Departure Songs 2.
Right.
It all led into that like that bleakness, that global warming, dryness, that like all that aesthetic. And Greg was kind of the perfect candidate for that. And we loved a bunch of the stuff he'd done. Like Tim who did Departure Songs, who's our good friend, he's really like lush and lovely and all that kind of thing. And I think that we just like we're kind of intentionally trying to move away from that. And so Triumph Disaster sounds like a really kind of different record. But it here we go, we get company again.
I see a hand.
I'm not. Go inside, please. I'll
How
talk
do
to you
you
later.
make it?
Go inside.
This is the best interview ever. I'm loving this. The album was prescient too, because not long after it came out, you had the fires down there.
Yeah, that's right. They were insane. There was like fire tornadoes and stuff. It was wild. It was horrific. It was. We're pretty like we get lots of fires in Australia. It's pretty common. They're always kind of terrifying, but this was like the most terrifying thing I'd like ever seen. And it looked like out of a movie. There was literally, because the amount of heat and the wind and the dryness and all that kind of stuff, there was like fire tornadoes, and the fires were so big that they were creating their own weather fronts and like causing lightning, and like lightning was like lighting up other bits of the bush, and it'd been so dry for so long, and just like it was intense. It was wild. And then this year we've had about 47 1 in 100 year floods. So, yeah.
Pay attention to what the band is trying to tell you, people.
Yeah, I think it blows me away because, I think maybe February, as early as February this year, we had the first big lot of floods, and I think we've had like 4 major flooding events across like the country, kind of thing. And I mean like whole cities, like whole towns underwater, like everyone being rescued and like houses being destroyed, like not just like the river burst its bank, but like crazy level like flooding. People have died. Like it's been awful. And you still get the people who are like, well, it's raining, so global warming's a myth, and you're like, oh.
Come on, people, the Nile ain't just a river in Egypt. I understand completely.
Yeah, that's right. So, Australia's a pretty wild place. And thankfully, we had a pretty right-wing government who were pretty awful for about 12 years. And they were super big on supporting coal and big business and everyone making money except people who need money, poor people, and all that kind of stuff. And they were like overtly anti anything to do with climate change. Like our prime minister walked into our parliament. So prime minister's like, I guess, is like the president of Australia, but not really, because the Queen, not the Queen, the King now, I guess, is still the head of our state, but whatever. Anyway, I digress. And he walked in with a huge lump of coal and was like, "This is the future of Australia," whatever. And it's like, bro, this is so out of touch. Old white men making bad decisions, and it's like, well, nothing's changed. So I mean, the new government isn't like heaps better, but they're a little bit better. And but I guess the most exciting prospect about all of it was in our last federal national elections was that anyone who's kind of an old dinosaur kind of got voted out, and there's lots of new young kind of blood pushing stuff, and there's definitely a big swing across the kind of whole country into people being like, no, hang on, I'm sick of like my town burning down and then my town flooding, and then and then being told that, oh, we're going to put a mine in, we're going to burn more coal, or we're going to commit to coal to whatever, and like to the point where like the UN and stuff were just like saying that we're basically committing crimes by being so shit at it, and like I don't know. Anyway, it gets me upset, so I'm trying to not rant.
I've been a midnight oil fan since the mid '80s, and Peter Garrett has gone on about that kind of thing. In fact, they were just here in Chicago over the summer, and he was still. Yeah. He was still on that, and that's fine. Sooner or later, I hope somebody's going to listen. The new record, am I allowed to ask if there's a theme behind it, or are we keeping that under wraps for now?
You can ask. I think we've started working on it, and is there a theme yet? No, there's not. We're talking about it. We're trying. We're trying to come up with one. It's hard because so we've got a whole bunch of music written. We've got a lot of music down, not like ready to record, but we've got a lot demoed out properly, and we're working on a lot of ideas. And we've got like one track that's like, it's funny that you said it before, but it's about 23 minutes long, and so that's pretty much that's pretty much done. And we're once we kind of get back into a room together, we might be ready to record that pretty soon. And so I guess, now is the time to start thinking about like concepts or whatever. And it's interesting because the last one was pretty, it was adopted really early on, and we definitely had talked about it in depth for a long time. And the initial idea was that I think it started out as we were in a van driving to Melbourne, and it started out as a dumb idea that we'd like try and do a stage show or something dumb, and we'd write like live music to it, and like so we'd almost like do a play, but instead of it not being quite a musical, it would be like a instrumental musical where like we would play a live score to the thing, and then we're like, we could write about this, and then this and this, and then it became about climate change and all that kind of stuff. And so that idea floated around, and it kept getting like, I guess, like whittled down. And so the next idea was that we're going to write like I think it became like maybe like a novel, and then like a novella, and then somehow it got to like a children's story or whatever. But that was like before we'd even written any music for it. So whereas this time we've started writing music, and we've had discussions about whether or not we're going to have a concept and stuff, but I'm pretty pro concept. I think it ties in really nice with the artwork and stuff, and you can really like tell a story and say something. It gives us a chance as like more than musicians, but as people to like say something, and I guess more than just like being like, oh hey, here's a quirky song title or whatever. Like Mogwai have like all the best song titles, but it doesn't really ever delve deeper than that. And I'd like to keep delving into, I guess, humanity and into like who we are as people and stuff. So maybe like I'm thinking, and if you ask the band, I'll probably tell you something else, but I would like to get a bit more personal with this concept. So we kind of went, I guess, macro with the last one, and this one I'd like to get like kind of micro. That's kind of where I'm at.
That would kind of bring things full circle with the Purging songs, almost like a trilogy that you'd have going.
Yeah, well, we actually have always talked about that. We've always talked about like doing like three big like concept records with like the whole artwork thing, everything was all kind of together, and doing three big like not typical Wheeler-C stuff, but like using similar things we've done before that work and we know work, and doing like I guess the big build and the big like payoff or whatever, which is what we like doing anyway. That's like not an intentional thing. It just happens because we like doing real pretty stuff. Then all of a sudden we're like, yeah, we always used to be in metal bands and hardcore bands, and we like big riffs. And then we go, yeah, let's make it heavy as we can. And so that just like happens naturally. And but I think it'd be really cool to do 3 big instrumental records that have big concepts. And then from there we can start moving off and doing some weirder stuff. And I know that Matt in our band wants to do like some like trip hoppy kind of stuff or whatever. And so who knows, like. But yeah, I want to nail the third concept, get in there, make it really kind of personal, and see what happens.
Excellent. Well, regardless of what you do, you've already got one hype man. I
appreciate your support all the time.
Oh, you earned it. You earned it, absolutely. I mean, you would think that people would get tired of me talking about this group. I don't care because I need to keep pushing this out here, and I told you this privately, and I'm telling everyone out here right now, I have recommended Departure Songs to no less than 24 people. And I've heard not one negative word about that record. And I mean, I've introduced people to Frank Zappa, to Miles Davis, to King Crimson, to this band, to that band. And there's always somebody that doesn't care for it. But Departure Songs, it hits us in the feels, as we say. Here. Everybody is on board.
Well, yeah, it's like what I said before. I think that's just part of that shared thing, that universal concept, right? Like I don't know.
Yep, agreed. I meant to ask you before, where did you get the name of the band from? That's something I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's not a wild story. We started out. We had a really awful name, which not awful for any reason, just a bad name. I think when we first started, So essentially what happened was that I wanted to start the band, and I bugged a whole bunch of people to start the band with me. And pretty much everyone I started bugging were already dudes in other bands or whatever. And I was just this dude who no one really knew. I kind of was on like the periphery of the scene in the city that I was living in. Was like in this area outside of Sydney that kind of all these guys were from. And I like knew them from like parties or whatever, and I was like, "Yeah, I play," and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, cool, right, whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I actually play. Like, I want to do this thing." And actually, as it turns out, the two other current guitarists and our drummer, who've joined over different periods of time, all used to play in this band called Omerata, and they were like this, I guess like proggy, progressive kind of hardcore band. Really good, really heavy. I was a big fan. And the band broke up, and the drummer was a transit officer. So he's like worked on the trains, like I guess like train security kind of thing in Sydney. And I was going to uni, and I would see him at the central station, like the main station in Sydney. I'd see him like once every couple of weeks, and I'd be like, we should jam. And he was like, yeah, cool. And I was like, yeah, let's jam. And I got his number, and I started bugging him, hey man, we should jam. And eventually he was like, oh shit, all right, I'll jam with you, like just so I can say I've jammed with you, then we'll move on with our lives. And then we jammed, and he was like, oh, this guy can actually like write a riff or whatever. And we were like, okay, cool. And so then I just bugged a whole bunch of the dudes. So our singer, Chris, two of the two of the first guitarists were twins. And I bugged them. They were playing in a band that I really liked, and essentially a whole bunch of people like agreed to join this band on the proviso that they didn't have to commit to it. And so our first band name was like, it was called like the Poseidon, something like, it wasn't Collective. It was like the Poseidon Project, awful name. And I didn't like it, but whatever. We were just like, okay, cool. I was just psyched that people would like kind of play music, and and then we were just talking about it, and one day I was at this really shitty pub in Sydney, and kind of working out what was going on, and we were sitting around, me and a bunch of dudes, and drinking. I think at lunchtime they had like $2.50 schooners or something, and so we sat there for a couple of hours drinking heaps of schooners, and we started talking about band names and stuff, and I like wanted something really long and obnoxious. And we started talking about, like, at the time, Australia had this really big hardcore scene, like metalcore more scene. And so all these bands had like 4 names, like 4 words in the names or whatever. And So we started like just naming kind of dumb stuff and talking about whatever. And I remember thinking about wanting to be called like Lost at Sea or something. And because there's a Sigur Rós song called, this is a big long tangent story, sorry. There's a Sigur Rós song called,
I'm a Sigur Rós fan too. That works.
yeah. So it's on the Tark record. It's like, I don't even know how to say it. It's like the Sagaplur song or whatever. It's got that film clip where it starts. It's the film clip where it starts and they're in like there's a dude in like a river, the sun setting or whatever. And I really liked that song. And when I looked up the translation of the Icelandic word, I was like, oh, Lost at Sea, that's really cool. But I didn't really like the name or whatever. And then I was thinking about like I Am Lost at Sea or whatever. And I was like, that's not very good or whatever. Then, I just one day was like, oh, We Lost at Sea, that's pretty cool. And there's lots of bands doing the we thing or, I was like, well, it's still kind of like a collective and that's what everyone kind of wants it to be. And I was like, that kind of works or whatever. And so then we did that and then, and so we liked it, stuck, and it kind of made sense because, always liked, what's the word I'm looking for? Always liked things that were like big and like, I wanted to, I guess I love the ocean. I love like looking at it and being in it. It sounds dumb or whatever, but I always felt like the ocean was like big and beautiful and destructive and heavy and all that kind of stuff. And so
that works.
It made kind of sense.
It's a good concept. It's a great concept, and I always seem to have to repeat it when I tell people your band name, and I think that's actually a good thing because that brings in a certain degree of focus when you hear a band name like that.
Yeah, I think also sometimes it doesn't. I mumble a lot. I don't know if you've noticed, but you might have in this conversation. But and so
You'll be fine.
When I say it, same thing. People are like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, I have to say," and people kind of look at me like, "Okay," and they're like, "Sea is in like sea or the ocean?" And I'm like, "All right, cool." So,
Beautiful thing. I know family time is a coming, so I'm gonna get you out of here on this. Make it easy. Hype yourself up. Where's the best place we can find We Lost at the Sea out there?
Hype myself up. Bandcamp. Bandcamp's the best, man. Always on Bandcamp. So we're on the streaming stuff, but if you want us to see any money, Bandcamp is the way to go. But YouTube, Google us. We've got a website like www.wheelc.com. All that kind of stuff. We're all there. Hit us up. Find us on Instagram. You can message us. We reply to like pretty much every message. So we're not,
I can vouch for that. I get answers. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, just reach out and get in touch and say hello.
That is wonderful. Well, Mark, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to chat with me here. And I've
thanks so much for having me
across the international date line.
Yeah. Sorry if I've talked too much and edit out all the stuff that is bad.
Oh, that was the fun part. That was the fun part. You enjoy your holidays. Take care of yourself and the fam. And we'll be looking forward to some new music, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Hope so. Thanks so much, man.
Cheers.